You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
What these people wanted to get out of their buildings was so different than it is today. So Miami, Tampa, St. Augustine. Then I'd go to Southwest Florida, Punta Gorda, Siesta Key. You'll hear the term blue bloods because blue-blooded people who have a higher frequency blood tend to be royalty. Copper, that's because there's iron in the blood, which makes it red. Iron is Mars, right? You want to go a little bit higher. Copper has a more agreeable frequency through its planetary rulership of Venus that is above iron. So Flagler had this gold thumb where everything he touched turned to a monolithic castle, and it was all within 2 years of each other. We're a little bit too far into the virtue, because there's 7 sins, 7 virtues. This is Dr. Narco Longo, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio. As far as the tour guide thing, I think it says travel agent. It was just I wasn't trying to be sassy or anything. It's just, it was something that I was running into a lot where, like, almost a majority of my DMs were people saying, I'm coming to Florida. What should I see? Or what can I do? And I was kind of just getting sick of saying, go watch the videos, or I didn't have the time to, I wanted to help everyone out and to tell people good places to go, but it was just taking up a lot of my time. So basically I had to put out a message that I can't just be helping everyone who's traveling to Florida and showing them spots, but that's really it. But then as far as keeping Florida, I've had some criticism of people saying, good videos, but you're bringing too many people to Florida. There's already too many people here. Why sound the alarm now when there's already so many people here for the wrong reasons? And my attitude's always been, people are here already, right? Things are happening to the environment already. We might as well swap who we can for the like-minded people and the people willing to come here for the good reasons. At the very least, those people will commit to Florida versus the people who are more seasonally attached to Florida. And I think it's good to sound the alarm. You notice the Florida Board of Tourism, or whatever their title is, they don't really advertise Florida Springs at all. You'll see a lot of beaches, you'll see a lot of fishing, you'll see a lot of stuff like that. They don't want people going to the springs. So I don't talk about the springs too much. I try to just talk about the quality of the spring water itself rather than the springs, because I get it. Traffic does equate to more pollution a lot of the time. But it's not something I'm worried about. And like I said, I'd rather get the like-minded people fully aware of what's out there. So,
have you noticed a big boom in the last 3 years in population or density?
Yes. So when COVID started, it was very seasonal. Palm Beach County is where I live, where I'm from. And that's very, very seasonal. A lot of people from up north come down during the season. Once COVID happened, a lot of people were just kind of either stuck here or stuck somewhere else. And then during that, as the politics kind of developed, state versus state, you had a ton of people. I think everyone knows, seeing in the news, how many people have moved to Florida, Texas the last couple of years. So I definitely see that up front. I can see that with my own eyes. There's a ton of people that moved here, and there's less of a seasonal crowd. Now there's more people here year round because they moved here for political reasons rather than just, vacation or the weather. So yeah, I see it. There's a bunch of people in Palm Beach too. Palm Beach Island, Palm Beach County.
You mentioned the springs, and you were educating us on Friday at the meetup on all the springs here and all the benefits of the springs. Are you at a point in your life where you're just drinking spring water at this point?
No, so I'm all about the spring water. And I think if you did drink nothing but spring water your whole life, you'd be way better off than drinking tap water your whole life or drinking anything else. That being said, right now, I'm drinking distilled water in a copper vessel. So the copper vessel, it restructures, there's some debate as to how that word should be used, but it molecularly restructures the water. It gives it more of a magnetic inclination. We'll just call it that. I don't pretend to be a, physicist or anything or whatever is looking at the microscope, but this copper is good. Okay. There's lots of things you don't want your water in. Copper is good, so I put any type of water I have, spring or distilled, I'll put it in my copper vessel. Copper has a higher frequency than human blood. We have iron blood, right? Well, you'll hear the term blue bloods because blue-blooded people who have a higher frequency blood tend to be royalty, tend to be great, musicians, inventors, and the like, rulers, etc. Regardless of your opinions on stuff like that, there's a thing such as high blood or royal blood. Now, whether that's passed down directly every time, that's another debate. But the goal of this and how this is achieved and what this is comprised of is copper, an increased copper content in the blood. So the royal families of the planet have, not only do they tend to have Rh negative blood, but they tend to have a higher copper content in the blood, meaning they are bluer, have a bluer blood. And people who have this bluer blood, when they are pricked, their blood purple, bluish or purple, and then oxidized red. So yeah. And okay, so copper, that's because there's iron in the blood, which makes it red. Iron is Mars, right? You want to go a little bit higher. Copper has a more agreeable frequency through its planetary rulership of Venus that is above iron. So to drink water off of copper also is more harmonious because iron is hot, masculine, drying. Water wants to be cooled and collected and moistened. And copper is better suited for that. So that's some of the distinctions. Copper is better to drink out of. You asked about spring versus distilled. So I drink distilled day to day because it has nothing in it. Distilled or reverse osmosis, either one. They're not exactly synonymous, but either one of those are good to go for because you're going to get fluoride out. You're going to get things like that out of your water. Distilled has nothing but H2O. So you'll see, science laboratories using distilled water to clean faces and wounds and stuff like that because it's pure water, nothing else, nothing growing in it, nothing living in it. So then you have, that's distilled. Distilled's good to drink. It's very good for fasting. It's good for losing weight. But it doesn't have any nutrients. It doesn't give you anything. And a lot of people are going to call it dead. So in order to reanimate or re-mineralize your water, you want to get a little bit of salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan salt, sea salt if it's a really good one, and just put a pinch, not even a pinch, a couple grains, literally 3 grains, right? And that'll remineralize your water. Put that in a copper vessel, it'll re-electrolyze your water, however you want to say that. I know the effects. I know how it works, and it makes me feel a lot better. Distilled water can have a little bit of a deadness to it, stagnation to it. So that's distilled water. I drink distilled day to day because I live in South Florida. It's hard to go get the spring water. There's also some concern about drinking mineralized water on a not so perfect diet can lead to joint issues and over mineralization of bones. So distilled doesn't have anything in it, meaning that if that's the case, distilled's better for your joints. But yeah, there's not that many springs down here in Southeast Florida. So if I had more access to spring water, it'd probably be closer to half and half. But when I was there at the spring, I was, taking big gulps because that's some of the best water you can get right there at Kelly Park. Spring water, I'd recommend for anyone trying to gain weight, people looking for nutrition, like supplementation, weightlifters, things like that. Um, Spring water is almost like a full meal. There's enough nutrients in a gallon of spring water. That's like, a ton of vegetables, a ton of servings of food is in spring water in terms of nutrients, cell salts, magnesium, potassium in certain springs. And then some of the trippy things we're going to talk about, like radium and plutonium and stuff. But spring water is good. It's definitely good, but just be careful of over mineralization. If that's something you want to be aware of. Distilled is good, also great. Just be aware of the lack of a charge or lack of minerals. So they're both good. Those are my two go-to waters. And rainwater is good too if you know it's very clean.
Where'd you get your copper vessel? I find it hard to find a pure copper. A lot of stuff I find is like copper lined.
No, it's Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon. Mm-hmm.
You brought up the fact that if you're not really right on your diet, the over mineralization could be an issue. And I know you are a vegan, and you've talked about the benefits of fruit and all the good sources of fruit that we get here in the state of Florida. Have you always been on that kind of path, or was there kind of something that kind of brought you to that path and brought you to this education of, your knowledge of the land and nutrition?
Right. So yeah, full disclosure, I am a vegetarian, loose vegan. I eat honey, and I'm not like a lifestyle vegan, definitely not. But full disclosure, I am a vegetarian. That is kind of the focus of a lot of my content is holistic living with a emphasis on fruits and things like that, and citing the first book of Genesis, right? So citing Genesis, the first couple lines and some things like that. So also people don't understand it's the philosopher's diet. The philosopher's diet is something I like to say. I know that's very pretentious, but the ancient Greeks, Plato, Socrates, Hippocrates, all these guys were vegetarians. Da Vinci, Nietzsche, for large portions of his life. He's much later. I'm not grouping him in with them, but lots of thinkers. Tesla, Einstein, even though Einstein's pretty much garbage. Einstein was a vegetarian too. So a lot of thinkers, right? We're not trying to say it's the number one way to produce bodybuilders, but if history tells us anything, it does seem like the number one way to bring about thinkers and reformers and all the pretentious titles, right? So thinkers, philosophers, and this goes back all the way to the ancient Greeks. Before that, you have plenty of evidence backing this up. But so you asked about my path. I grew up hunting. I grew up eating whatever I wanted to eat. I still do eat whatever I want, I guess. Grew up eating anything, drinking anything, lots of Mountain Dew and stuff like that, and frozen food, McDonald's. So I grew up on all that, the regular stuff, and grew up hunting and fishing. So might have even had like more wild meat than the average person. I liked dairy a lot growing up, for sure. And when I didn't think anything about any of that stuff, although I didn't like red meat from the beginning. I just wasn't a steak guy. Didn't like pork at all. But I definitely liked chicken, definitely liked some seafoods. I hated fish. Never liked fish. Never liked red meat. But okay. Not that you guys care. And then into high school, that there was still not any interest in nutrition or anything. And then when I started taking acid in my senior year of high school, is when I started thinking about things like that, and I was getting introduced to vegetarians who are very aware, very healthy, and just, in my opinion, as an honest, seeker of truth coming out of high school, the vegetarians were 5 to 10 years ahead of the other truthers in terms of the good stuff, not the 9/11 happened like this and the World Trade Center, and very low vibrational kind of fear stuff. That seemed to be what was bounced around in the bars and the chicken stores and things like that, is these kind of low hanging fruits that you'll hear on any street corner, low hanging conspiracy theories, the stuff that I was kind of, very interested in, reading Plato and stuff. I just gravitated towards. I had people in my life. I was lucky enough to have very healthy people who were also vegetarians and were athletic, healthy, very smart, and like I said, a little bit ahead of the crowd in terms of what they were into. And I was in my senior year of high school, started hanging out with one guy in particular who was a very good role model at the time. And no one ever tried to convert me or anything like that. I had friends growing up who were vegetarian. I used to make fun of them. Interestingly, their dad was the biggest conspiracy theorist, that vegetarian family. Biggest conspiracy theorist. He knew all the stuff way before I ever got into this. I think I've talked about him in some other videos, but I was just kind of on my own in terms of nutrition, not going in any one particular way until I was out of high school. And like I said, I had that experience. I had some good friends. And then once I was out of high school and I went to college for marine biology, I just started caring a little bit more about what I ate, started kind of excluding certain things from my diet rather than including very healthy things, which I think a lot of people do starting off. The emphasis is more about what you don't want to eat. And I was kind of doing that. But so I went vegetarian, made some steps, did some things. And, not to be a pretentious vegan, but I felt that the onset of learning, the sudden love of knowledge that had expanded, I think was directly in part to that switch. Certainly, it makes learning certain things easier. Certain things flow. As a speaker, I don't feel like I read any of this in a book and amassed it in my head. You feel like you're borrowing from something that's more capable than yourself, right? When you speak and kind of tune into something that interests you. And I think not only does things like cannabis make that easier, but a healthy diet makes that very, very easier. You'll hear people throw around things like chakras, and this chakra is activated, that one's not. Well, I think that diet does have a huge part to play in this. And to me, I go off of experience and what worked, and it worked. Did I lose weight? Yes. I think most vegetarians end up losing a little bit of weight. But like I said, I'm not building houses all day. I'm not powerlifting. And I'd rather have. Rudolf Steiner said any nutrients that a vegetarian is potentially missing out on physically, they are more than making up for in terms of spirituality or spiritual nutrients, is what he says. So that's kind of something that I like to point back to is, what type of person are you trying to become? Do you want to look like Joe Rogan and talk like Joe Rogan? Or do you want to look like a rock star and a philosopher and, skinny people achieve too. It's basically, yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say you started taking acid?
So okay, here, I'll tell you specifically why I mentioned acid. I took LSD at my friend's house, and it was like taco night. And I love tacos. Like, I absolutely love tacos. Had no intention of stopping eating tacos, and I took acid, and my other friends were enjoying themselves, and I was smelling the tacos being made, and I just couldn't like stomach it. I got very sick and nauseous, and I just didn't. It was uncomfortable, and I really wanted to eat them, and I kind of like had to eat something else, and that was just one of the early moments where I just said, okay, well, maybe my body doesn't like this. So
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Rashad Evans, who was a former UFC fighter, he said on a heavy dose of psilocybin that he felt like he started to smell himself, and it made him nauseous. He got sick from it, and he's been plant-based ever since that experience.
wow. I mean, I'll tell you, vegetarians do tend to smell better. That's my experience. Is they just have a lighter, cleaner, more floral smell. There's less salts and fats and grease and um, things like that. I smell, not to toot my own horn here, but I swear my body odor smells like passion fruit now that I'm vegetarian. And before it smelled like whatever you were eating. But yeah, people smell better when they make the switch. That's for sure.
Was it through this process too that you started getting into like the old world stuff, or did that come later in your journey?
There was a big connection to vegetarianism and health through Plato. I was very lucky to have gotten the complete works of Plato when I was about 19 or 20, 21 maybe. And I kind of stuck my nose in that for a while. And finding out that him and his buddies, his mentors, his disciples, people in the circles, the Neoplatonists, especially, subsequently, they all had a huge emphasis on healthy diet, abstinence from animal foods, and they believed this did open the body up to higher truths, higher possibilities, less interest in physical endeavors, less interest in physical achievements, where you'll find a lot of people who eat a different way are more concerned with physical achievements and what things look and touch, feel like, rather than what people are capable of. And you'll never find a talented person spending more than an hour in a gym, right? It just doesn't happen. You'll never find the greatest speakers, guitar players, and all this. Okay, blah blah blah. But what was the question?
As you got into your diet and that journey, did the old world stuff come into play, or is this something that came in after?
Early on, I had some big kind of people had shown me some truths about World War II, right? Not only like 9/11 and recent events, but going back to World War II, going back to World War I, seeing how there were sudden shifts in society that were a little bit deeper than just the political, than just the economic shifts from socialism, which you could blame a lot of things on, socialism and Bolshevism. But to me, that's a reset. That's the old world. The Tsars getting murdered in the families of the Tsar getting murdered and in their basement machine gunned by the Bolsheviks. But things like that. My father brought me up with a general, understanding of world history and military history. So it wasn't a shock learning things like, history is a lie. Like 500 years didn't happen. This was added. Things like that. I don't think that's out of the common wheelhouse for what you see in history. Sometimes there's even in the mainstream, there's periods in Asia where they'll say, oh, we don't know if this happened 400 years ago, or 800 years ago, or 1200 years ago, and you still get that all the time. So to think that we have it all hashed out right now is not a good starting place for anyone to kind of be working from when they're looking at history. But I'd also say the nutrition did get into the old world, because to me that is the old world, and it brings up the question about the fall of man and what did man do to increase his suffering on this earth. Because no matter which way you look at the Old Testament, something happened where man earned a harder existence on this earth. Now I've theorized that being the introduction of winter to this earth, to this plane, however you want to say it. Winter being hell, being a hard, cruel existence, being ruled by Saturn or Satan, Santa Claus, whatever. That's kind of more the effect. Something happened. The conditions were increased, where life has become a little harder, unless you're lucky enough to live in a place like Florida. So whatever caused that, whatever kicked that off, to me, would either have to be a sexual mishap or a dietary mishap. Something that mankind did to worsen their existence, to earn. I know this is kind of too karmic for some people's worldview, but mankind did something. Eating from the tree of life, or eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you have a karmic debt that we've kind of been paying off ever since. And this isn't necessarily my worldview that I operate off of, but that's kind of the shared conception of world history, is that there was a fall from grace. Man fell. Now, to me, that fall would have either had to have been, like I said, a sexual mishap, misunderstanding, shift in attitude, shift in goal towards sexuality, or a shift in diet and nutrition. And not only that, but attitude towards the production of food and how society is shaped around a food source and a steady food source. So to me, it's these two that mark the greatest shift in spirituality and society. So does that answer the question? I guess I think that one of the falls of man would have been the choice to consume animal foods, or that one of the punishments of man's fall was to be conditioned, forced to eat animal foods, and adapted to eat animal foods, whether he liked it or not, until he was able to return to an Edenic state. So, yes, I think that's kind of the old world link for me. Also, there were no bathrooms in a lot of these Tartarian buildings, old world, old Moorish, Victorian style castles, whatever you want to call them, Gothic cathedrals. A lot of them didn't have bathrooms. Try eating a lot of meat and pork and drinking alcohol and dairy and not having bathrooms in places. It would be disgusting. So these people were either fasting or they were very light eaters, very, very light. So there's another little link.
What was the first kind of aha landmark or history about Florida that led you to, oh my goodness, this is the birthplace of civilization. This is where the fountain of youth is. All this literature is actually referring to my home state. What was kind of that aha piece for you?
I grew up, my dad I went to FSU, so he was a Florida Seminole, right? So I grew up with like Seminole iconography all over the house and stuff. When I'd come to researching this stuff, the Seminoles would play a big role, but that was more of an influence, kind of a syncing up synchronicity that would come up later. But in terms of an aha moment, I was traveling in my van. I've been living in a van for a little while, so I travel a lot. Been to 43 states, or 44. And like 3 years ago, not even, I don't know. I've only been on YouTube for like a little over a year. But I don't know, 2 years ago, I was driving around the Southeast United States. I was coming back down to Florida, back down to Palm Beach, where I live. And I was passing through St. Augustine. And I was passing through, and I got out. And yes, a lot of this old world Tartaria movement was kind of popping off, which I was late. I was late to that party. I was definitely late to that whole old world party. But I was just looking at all these buildings in downtown St. Augustine, and they have the Star Fort there. They have two castles, two giant castles, a ton of Moorish castles, smaller ones that are hotels, a university. Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum is one of these old Moorish castles, and they're all monolithic. They're monolithic. So you touch them, they look brand new, but they're apparently close to 150 years old. But not only do they look brand new, at the same time they look brand new, they also seem like they could only have been made 500 years ago. And they just have such a different design, style, and approach, and utility. What these people wanted to get out of their buildings was so different than it is today. And the aha moment was just being in St. Augustine, looking at all the architecture, and just going back home, looking up on Wikipedia kind of the official stories, and very little of it made sense to me. And like I said, I had a little bit of a general understanding of Florida history, and a lot of that didn't fit in so well, especially once you understand if Rockefeller's the guy that everyone points to in terms of the medical industry being a complete hoax, and if we have entire industries that are based on lies, and people push these lies all day, get paid a lot of money, and if we can point to one guy who's at least the cause of like two of those industries, right? The Rockefellers, who was the partner of Rockefeller, Henry Flagler. So if Rockefeller's the oil and the medical industry guy, if not more than that, then what does Flagler have his hands in? What did Flagler have his fingers in? What was he getting into? What skeletons were in his closet? And just a brief scan of his Wikipedia page shows that he was no model, role model. He was, yes, very rich, yes, very influential. He owned like every newspaper south of St. Augustine, I think is what they were saying. He certainly owned a ton. Like most of the newspapers in Florida were his. So nothing bad was written about him. But even now, they'll tell you he was using slaves. Decades after slavery was outlawed, he was using them to build his railroad, to build his hotels potentially. And so if Rockefeller's this kind of shady, sketchy guy, why isn't Flagler being held to that same what's the word? Scrutiny. So I just was looking into Flagler, and turns out everything in St. Augustine turns out Flagler touched. So Flagler had this gold thumb where everything he touched turned to a monolithic castle, and it was all within 2 years of each other. So a lot of unlikelihoods, if you could call them that, unlikelihoods.
Yeah, it's interesting when you start looking into the timelines of the builds and the constructions. It's like almost nonstop, repeatedly, over and over. Whenever you look into some of these buildings, it's a 1 year timeline. And we lived in Denver before we moved down south, and there'd be construction sites that have been going on for 2, 3, 4 years, and it's just these square box buildings that they're still taking their time, but yet these magnificent structures, they put them up in a year. And with with the technology that we're told that they had back then was pulleys and horse and buggies and that sort of stuff. So when you dig into these things, it just it's really hard to wrap your head around something of that magnitude to be built in 1 year.
Yeah, I've had architects tell me that one of the buildings alone, the foyer coming into the main lobby, the carpentry alone would have taken 2 years in some of these buildings. Not only that, let's just say that they were all built exactly when we're told, for the reasons we're told, even though they've been repurposed multiple times in modern history. If we just assume that they were all built when we were told, well, then at least we have a large conspiracy or question that needs to be raised of why did they stop building like this? What happened? Is it just humans degenerated to such a state that we lost the ability? I think that in Florida specifically, the Florida housing market has been the cause of the last couple major economic crises in American history. So not only was 1929 largely triggered by a Florida housing market crash, but so was 2008. And building out of shoddy materials is what keeps the real estate market alive and generating and evolving and essentially bubbling on itself. So building out of permanent materials does not serve the moneymakers and the money changers and the investors and the bankers, not to be a cliche, but it's true. The money changers benefit from the shoddy materials, the disposable building styles, and not only that, if you look into the brutalism behind it, it brutalizes the soul. It makes disgusting, angry people. It makes inadequate people. It makes people with inferiority complexes. It makes a prisoner mindset. A lot of this brutalist architecture, and that is what had to end in this reset, whatever turn of the century shift, World War I, socialism, whatever you want to blame it on. Brutalism became what was promoted. Now we even have something less impressive than brutalism. It's just so disposable. Street posts and all this stuff are just so every design is an afterthought, and before every design was filled with pride and you guys get it.
You brought up St. Augustine being a place when you were driving through and really started paying attention to the architecture there and kind of opened up your eyes. And there's plenty of content on your YouTube and all the other podcasts you've been on where you talk about a lot of the landmarks in Florida. What are maybe, top 5 places for people listening to this podcast that they might want to check out or look into some of the architecture and the other spots in Florida?
St. Augustine, downtown St. Augustine. You can park and see everything in about a 5-minute walk in any direction. Tampa Bay. And then if you go to Miami area, you can see Homestead as well, where the Coral Castle is. The Miami Circle is in downtown Miami, but Coral Castle's nearby. Miami Circle, Venetian pools. So Miami, Tampa, St. Augustine. And hey, if you're, Palm Beach isn't that bad. We got some cool stuff. And then I'd go to Southwest Florida. Just anywhere around there. Punta Gorda, Siesta Key. Lots of radium in the water over there. So lots of good springs, warm mineral springs, things like that. So, but architecture, St. Augustine, Tampa Bay, so the whole area, Tampa Bay area, St. Augustine, Tampa, Miami, and yeah.
If you had to put a top 5 playlist together of your videos to recommend for people, what would those 5 be?
The Saxor Stones, I think, is like a good snapshot of the channel. In the Beginning by E.E. Calloway, audiobook. That's super rare book. You can't even find that book hard copy. Very hard. There's like less than 50 on the internet. In the Beginning, full audiobook that I read. So Saxor Stones, In the Beginning. I have to go look. The Portal one's pretty good. The Portal videos. Let's see. I'm searching up that Old World Florida guy. See what his top videos are. Yeah, the Portal video, the original Portal video. Hell on Earth is good. I love that one. I'm all about the Finnish history and the Finnish lore and the Finnish etymology. Finnish equals Phoenician. You won't get that anywhere else on YouTube. Just saying. Finnish equals Phoenician. So Saxor Stones, Hell on Earth. Gulf of Mexico is the true Fertile Crescent. That's another good one. That's a bold theory. The Portal. Ancient Israelites of the Florida Everglades is another good one. But the Giants, Children of the Dawn, Giants, that one I think got censored pretty hard because I called out the Smithsonian. But yeah, I think that 5 or 6. Yeah.
Are you into the Bach Saga?
I love the Bach Saga. I think it's the greatest source of truth, etymological logic, truth, harmony, synchronicities. It's the claw that cracks every nut. It's great. Now I don't agree with everything in it, and there's certainly a lot of stuff that's going to be off-putting to people. But it explains a lot of why, and you don't have to agree with what's being said, but it explains where so many things went wrong and how there was a purpose behind a lot of our vices. There was a purpose. We have a lot of these desires, a lot of these urges, and people don't understand them. The Bach Saga had, in my view, the most pinpointed answers, explanations for all of mankind's issues and kind of quirks that we don't understand, that are glossed over by the other religions and even the deep Hermetic traditions. If you're getting a lot of this good, alchemical wisdom and philosophy, it's still going to be dry and not satiate, it won't reach this one area that, to me, the Bach Saga is the only thing that really, really scratches the itch. And then on top of that, I'd also throw out the King James Version Bible, complete works of William Shakespeare, complete works of Plato. You don't have to ever, if you don't like the Bach Saga, then latch onto those 3 things. If you latch onto those 3, complete works of William Shakespeare, complete works of Plato, and the King James Version Bible, you'll be smarter, more well-armored, better equipped, better suited, more philosophically gifted than everyone else. So But Box Saga is good too. It's interesting. Good history.
Do you have any vices?
Any vices?
Do you have any vices?
Vices. I mean, generally what people would consider. I'm a good eater. I'm very temperate in my diet. So that's something I've been blessed with. I'm not controlled by gluttony. I'm not controlled by things like that. But well, let's go down to 7. Am I proud? Am I prideful? Am I a little vain? Yes, I think that's good. I think today the meter for like where everyone's pride is at is very low, and we've all been kind of beat down. So we're a little bit too far into the virtue, because there's 7 sins, 7 virtues, and if you're balanced, that's the virtue. But if you're way past that meter, even in the good direction, past what's good, into like submission, like being. So do I have vices? Pride, vanity, sure, probably a little. I like talking. I like telling the truth. I'm a little arrogant. I know that I can do things better than others, or else I wouldn't bother to get up and tell these things and stuff like that if I thought I wasn't a little bit. So pride, vanity. I think pride can be a good thing, but if it crosses into vanity, that's not good. But I don't like when people say pride is a sin, because pride can be interpreted, right? Vanity is a little bit more of, it's Venus, it's vanity, being too obsessed with beauty and cosmetics, aesthetics. So let's see. Vices. I'm not celibate. I like girls. Like hot girls, definitely. I think every man should. That's healthy. That's I don't think that's advice, but in terms of what people consider like spiritually okay, Manly P. Hall talks about this, and I think someone else talks about this, but Manly P. Hall definitely does. How all the greatest teachers, there's a misconception today that the greatest teachers have to be like celibate or like shun women away forever. That's actually not true at all. The greatest teachers, the greatest philosophers, the greatest saviors, the greatest, you name it, messiahs, have all, for the most part, had wives, families. They were sexually active. Okay, they just did things correctly. So they don't shun things away entirely. That's too ascetic of an approach. And we need families today. We need people to be a little bit more proud. So we can tip that meter up a little. We can tip the fornication. We're already fornicating to like the umpteenth degree, aren't we today? So at least we should bottle that up and channel it in the right direction in terms of building stable homes. God made us attracted to each other for a reason. So vices. I like smoking pot, right? I like smoking pot a lot. I've never drank alcohol in my life. I've tasted it maybe 5 times with friends. I've never been drunk in my life. Never been drunk a single time in my life. I've never finished a cigarette, maybe a couple times. So I like pot because I think I really like it. I think it does something for me. And I don't think I have an addictive personality, but I'm addicted to pot. Whatever. I like it. It's good. It gives me what I need, and I don't think it takes much from me. I've always said, or it's been said that we all have a master in this life. Like we all have an attachment, right? And I've heard it said that what greater master than cannabis? Because even if you're its slave, it gives you almost everything you need, and it keeps you so happy. So that might be a very juvenile approach or attitude that I might grow out of later. But I like pot. I'm a little bit, if you consider that a vice. Let's see, what other ones are there? Sloth. I can be lazy, but I think that the message to be learned with sloth is an action is that you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Because when I'm doing a video that I like, which is almost all my videos, but if I'm doing a video that I'm passionate about and I feel, and I'm lucky enough to do what I love. Like I love making these videos and I get to like make the music in the background. So it's, fulfilling as a musician. And I feel like it's very engaging. It keeps my attention. I wake up very often and the first thing I want to do is put my hands on my computer and get to work before I do anything else. So I don't think many people can say that that's a gift. I think everyone should seek that out and what that is. And to me, you'll never, ever deal with sloth a day in your life if you have that in front of you, where find what you love, find how you can make money, bring those together as close as you can. And sloth will not be an issue. So it's not for me. What other vices are there, Jimmy? I'm going to have to hear your guys' now.
You listed a lot of mine. I've been having that cannabis struggle. I'm now on the off of it, but I'm a lover of cannabis. I haven't had the most healthy. I have an addictive personality, so I have to be aware of that. I don't like letting things control me or feeling like I'm not doing the best that I can. And I felt like for a while I was kind of just using that to get out of reality for a certain part of time. I'm on the same boat as you though. I love it. I see the benefits of it. I just know that I have to have a little bit of a healthier relationship with it. I think on the opposite end of some of the vanity or pride, I think I might go towards the other end and not see all that in me and not be as prideful as I should be sometimes. And or not boast, right? Or you mentioned one of your passions is getting on the computer and getting to that keyboard and starting to edit. And I have an obsessive personality, and over the past 2 years I've become obsessed with sun gazing and being out for sunrise and sunset, and I've let that take me away from my passion of getting on it and making videos and editing, because I try to get that sunlight the first thing. So it's finding that balance of hey, maybe if I'm feeling the need to create before I go out, maybe I need to do that and not be so rigid with certain things. So that's kind of the stuff that I battle. How about you, Rich?
Currently, I mean, if I analyze it, I would probably have to say a little bit of a sloth, in terms of not what you just said, not necessarily doing the things that I want to do when I get out of bed in the morning that I can do to make money, and going to a job that I sometimes enjoy, but it's not necessarily my deepest passion. I'm pretty. I do enjoy cannabis, but I have kind of stepped away from that. It just wasn't really serving me. Put me in my head way too much. And then I just was on a hamster wheel of, again, analyzing my slothness and not being proactive and productive in the areas that I need to be proactive and productive for my business. But other than that, I mean, I eat pretty healthy. I do enjoy probably nicotine more than I need to or should have in my life. That's probably the one thing, if I could stop and cut out of my life altogether, that would be the one thing that would have to go for sure. I'd rather put cannabis back in and take that out. So yeah, probably sloth. I mean, I'm productive and I do a lot of things, but again, I'm not necessarily producing the things I want to do to create content to make my financial well-being. So that's probably my biggest one right there.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for sharing that too. What about anger? I thought about that. That's what I kind of left out too. How are you guys with anger?
So you had made a mention the other day when we were talking about our signs, and me saying I was a Pisces, and you were saying Pisces don't get angry; they get pissed off. Well, I get angry, and I have a lot of anger, and it is definitely something that I have a hard time with, and I take everything personal. I break that fourth law all the time. That is something that I struggle with like every second of the day. It's like, and Rich and I always talk about having conversations that happened like 10 years ago with people. Like that is like constantly my wheel, and something that I'm battling with now, where I'm just trying to take every second at a time of just, hey, I'm here right now. Like today, I edited a podcast to go up this week, and my whole task for this day was like, just edit this piece, just get this piece done, like piece by piece by piece, because I'm so like all over the place. So just kind of getting focused. So yes, anger is something I definitely deal with.
Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy might
What about
disagree.
you? 100-mile dick.
Jimmy might disagree, but I feel like I've come a long way. I'm not really that angry. I'm pretty. I've done a lot with my meditation practice over the last 10 years now. I can kind of catch myself and laugh at myself when I still have a little road rage every once in a while.
We're from
Sure.
Jersey, though. That's in our DNA.
Sure. Hey, cars are weapons. Cars are weapons. You know, a lot of high stakes. So.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for sharing that stuff and sharing the information that you share, because it's definitely brought some things to the forefront of my thinking, and just what you commented on the slothness. That is definitely something that, chase my passion, and almost to the point of let my passion kill me. I'd rather be on that end of things and not chase it. So I appreciate you sharing that stuff, and we could dive deep with you all night, but we want to be super respectful of your time. We haven't even got into astrology, but I know there's plenty of videos and plenty of podcasts where you've spoken on that stuff prior. Before we get into our 4 standard questions that we ask all our guests, what are you working on right now that isn't out yet? Some videos or some stuff you're researching that's kind of scratching that itch for you right now?
Well, remember at the meetup, did you meet the Vaughn, the black airbender?
I did.
The plasma gun. So I've done a video with him that's going to be coming out soon. Went and filmed one of his events and kind of the process of electropuncture. I don't know if they're calling it that, but I'm calling it that. Electropuncture with a acupuncture needle going into the forehead on the third eye, and then a plasma gun arcing, like a visible electric charge traveling to the needle through a plasma gun. And he went around, and basically they were doing a sound healing with electropuncture. I filmed that. Going to be discussing that and the history behind some of it and the testimonials, but then also him and I together after that went to the Florida's Electrotherapy Museum, turn of the century electrotherapy museum. So late 1800s, early 1900s, electrotherapy devices, Antiquitech, healing Tesla coils, bloodless surgical devices, crazy shit, all electrical, all, Antiquitech, as people call it, this crazy stuff that didn't make it into the mainstream, but it was very capable, more capable than a lot of our mainstream instruments in many ways. So,
where is that museum?
It's north of West Palm, so Riviera Beach, I think it's called. Riviera, let me check that out.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that content that you put out. That really piqued my interest when you said that.
Riviera Beach. It's the Electrotherapy Museum. This guy who runs it is like a Tesla disciple who's met the Tesla family, has been handed down direct documents, signatures, has reconfigured Tesla devices. I know everyone throws around the Tesla word like this and that, and I tend to like stay away from a lot of the charlatans. This guy's the real deal. He's got an extraordinary collection of devices. His name's Jeff Bahari. So we're going to be doing a video about that with the electropuncture and Devon, the black airbender. That's what I'm working on right now. That's what I'm editing like right now. Got some stuff on the Coral Castle coming up soon too. Homestead, Coral Castle, limestone quarries, things like that. But that's what's upcoming.
So we have 4 standard questions that we ask all our guests. First
Okay.
one I got for you is, are you a coffee drinker?
No.
Do you consume
Never.
any caffeine, any tea, anything like that?
Tea, no coffee. Never been a tea drinker or like caffeine addict. I've been living a little differently this last month, but typically I go to bed around midnight, wake up around 6, and that's just kind of I don't need much sleep at all. I always wake up with energy. So no, never been a caffeine guy. To me, that's just strange. I think it's disgusting. Coffee tastes nasty. Most people spit it out on their first taste, like alcohol. They get conditioned to it later. The best way to ingest coffee is green, fresh, living. Even what we drink today is just charred. It's like charcoal, like peanuts in a bag. That's kind of strained, and you're getting like microwaved charcoal water. That's why it's very acidic. That's why it's very staining to the body. That's why it's very taxing on the growth, in your glands and things like that. It's just a very dead food, even though it has this jolt of energy. It's not really a jolt of energy. It just turns off your recognition of the fact that you're tired. So no, I'm not into that stuff. I like Coke. I'll drink a Mexican Coke every once in a while, for sure. I love that. You said vice. I guess that's like a vice, like a guilty pleasure. Mexican Coke, for sure. And to me, like the caffeine's the best part of is the best thing in there for you. You like caffeine. I'm not afraid of caffeine. I just don't think I need an external energy source. I used to drink energy drinks a lot, like middle school, and those always just made me feel terrible afterwards. So I just grew out of that, never went back. And I drink a lot of water, lemon water. When I have a nice glass to drink out of, a lot of orange juice, a shit ton of orange juice, like an absurd amount, half gallon a day almost. But that's way better than coffee, by the way, if you want energy, in my opinion. So no coffee. I like chocolate. I've been eating chocolate last couple of days.
All right.
Good.
Are you fresh squeezing your orange juice?
I don't fresh squeeze it. We're not quite in season here yet. We're about to be, and then that will hopefully be part of the regimen. But I have a couple favorite brands that don't pasteurize. So Kennesaw doesn't pasteurize. If you can get it fresh squeezed at Whole Foods, it's very expensive, but not pasteurized. Then Natalie's Gourmet pasteurizes, or Flash pasteurizes. They don't fully pasteurize, but those 3 are pretty good. You can get in stores, but then I always tell people to go to their farm stand, farmers market, farm stand, local, roadside, whatever, closest, freshest. That's the best. No pasteurization.
Do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
So on a good day, ideally, I go to the beach in the morning and will run. That's my preferred method of exercise: running, stretching. Go in the water. I like to swim. That's how I'll feel the best. Your question is, how would I show up as the best version? Spending my morning on the beach and having my shower be the ocean itself always makes me feel the best. And rituals, I tend not to eat until 11. 11 will be like the earliest that I'd eat. So I'm not like obsessed with fasting. It's not even like a fasting thing to me. It just weighs me down. I feel weighed down if I eat before 11. And I like to take walks at night. I think taking walks is very, very important. Not only the act of walking, which Hippocrates says is man's best medicine, best healing regimen is walking. Of course, he had an emphasis on diet, but walking. And then I'd also say, even the evil guys, you just see that video of King Charles walking by himself, right? Got rolled up on by the mountain bikers or something. Look at what John D. Rockefeller said about walking. He would take walks by himself late at night, even though it wasn't safe all the time to do so. It was important to the mind of a thinker, of a great man. It's not just the solitude. There's something behind walking and thinking that is productive. It's an unending source of inspiration, of healing. Yeah. So, one more thing. I crack my joints probably more than the average person. And I dress for the days of the week. So those come to mind. Different colors for the days of the week. But rituals, I guess that's a ritual.
Right on.
What are you listening to right now? Music, audiobooks, podcasts? Are you reading anything?
Not reading anything right now. Just kind of focusing on making videos. But listening to music, I've been listening to I'm always listening to like Ethiopian jazz, like Mulatu Astadke is a really good guy. The Ethiopics, I like kind of exotic sounds. Fela Kuti, I've been listening to Fela Kuti with Ginger Baker. Did that too. Different days of the week, I listen to different music on purpose, just to like tune into the different planets, basically. But also, what band have I been listening to? Mudvayne. You guys know who Mudvayne is? Listening to, but I think Mudvayne just got back together, so they're like kind of making some noise right now. So I've been listening to them because I grew up listening to Mudvayne, and that was like that one came to mind. But I've been listening to Sleep. So I love Sleep. If you know Sleep, check out Sleep. Oh yeah, Sleep. Yeah.
I actually try to subscribe to what you said as far as listening to different music on different days. I try not. I haven't been the best as I have been, but I try not to listen to the same thing 2 days in a row. Anytime I wake up with a song in my head, I try to steer away from that music.
All right,
That's a good approach.
I'm actually going to listen to some Sleep when I go for my walk here in a little bit.
Dope Smoker. Listen to Dope Smoker by Sleep.
Oh,
hour.
I have heard of Sleep. I know that song. Okay.
Hour-long song.
Yep.
Longest song ever made and the heaviest ever made.
Yeah. I think one of our friends might have recommended that to me.
Mhm. It's good stuff.
It is. Last one for you. You touched on a little bit with your Mexican Coca-Cola, but do you have any other guilty pleasures?
Guilty of it, but I think it might surprise some people to think that I'll eat fried foods. I love fried foods, so like I'm a lot of people might think that I'm like the raw fruit, only guy. That's certainly not the case, or certainly not yet. I promote the fruits and things like that, but in terms of guilty pleasures, I love French fries and things like that. So I'll still eat. I don't eat pizza. I don't eat anything like that. But French fries, I'll still eat. So I like French fries. Like if I'm on a road trip and if I'm really scraping like the bottom of the barrel, I'll eat like a bunch of Chick-fil-A fries because they use peanut oil, so their oil's not that. It's not the end of the world, right? But so yeah, I can be a little. That's like as gluttonous as I get. It's like a large fries from like Chick-fil-A or something. But guilty pleasures. If someone put an Xbox in front of me right now, I could probably spend 10 hours playing Halo 2, or Skyrim, or probably those two. But again, that's not even really a guilty pleasure. Like I'm proud of those. I love playing those growing up. So guilty pleasures, Coke, Mexican Coke. Yeah, it's probably the one. Or like some funny music, like some like Suicide Boys or something. People wouldn't expect me to listen to, maybe something like that. Madonna.
Old Madonna, like 80s Madonna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Get into the groove. Yeah.
There you go. Holiday.
You are the man, sir. Thank you for taking your time out of your evening to chat with the Airey Bros. Thank you for putting on that full moon gathering and getting me out of my my house and meeting some epic people this Friday. So keep doing your thing. Keep putting out the awesome content. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Enjoy your night. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your information.
Thank you guys. Anytime. Do it again sometime.
For
Definitely.
sure.